It is a hot summer day, friends, but I promised myself that I was going to make a video today about books, and a video you will get. So, welcome to my channel. My name is Ego, and as you can tell from today's video, I'm going to be talking about books you should read in your 20s or in your 30s. These are books that have in some way contributed to who I am or who I have become over the past decade, and books that I think may have helped me live life a little differently if I had known about them earlier. So I hope you find this video helpful. Let's get into it. Books never tire of me, and in time they present a solution, quietly waiting until I am fully healed. That is a quote from the memoir, I Want to Die, But I Want to Eat Teboki by Baek Sihi. I hope I didn't just butcher her name. But her words about books and the role that it plays in your healing and in your growth really resonated with me the first time I heard it, because do I think you can bypass the actual process of life and how it intertwines with your own personal journey as a person? Do I think you can bypass that entire process by reading the right books? No. I don't. There's still a lot that you can only learn by going into the world and taking a chance and taking action and making your own way. There are some things that you just have to learn from within about yourself. But what reading the right books can do for you is they can help you feed your soul. They can help you open your mind, and more importantly, help you grow into the kind of person that walks through the world with wonder. There is nothing more unattractive to me than a person who is so close-minded and who isn't curious about themselves, about the world, and even being okay with the fact that there is just so much that you will never know, because the more knowledge you get, the more you grow, the more humbling the process of life becomes, because you just know there's something you're just going to have to be open to, and get into that state of wonder is something that I strongly believe books help us with. And because we live in a world that subliminally teaches us to turn off our natural inclination for curiosity, books are a way to hold on to that part of ourselves, you know? And it is your God-given gift, so don't throw it away. Don't take it for granted. Books have helped me grow a lot. They have really opened my eyes to all the wonderful things and people in the world. And there are many ways in which I operate as a human being that I think I absolutely wouldn't have been able to, even in terms of developing my mind, if it wasn't for books. I can talk and talk and talk about books and how much reading in general can help shape you into a fantastic version of yourself. So for the few books that I'm going to be talking about, what do I believe they can teach you? I believe they will teach you the ability to ask questions and to have the courage to listen for the answers and take action on those answers when you get them. The ability to pause when you hear something and know that this is not for me. It may be for someone else, but this is not for me. This does not ring true for me. Or on the other hand, when a thought crops up in you, it helps you identify, it helps you know that this thought, even though I thought it, did not come from me. It helps you investigate yourself, you know? They also help you really hone the ability to live from the inside out, not from the outside in, so that you know to listen to yourself first before you take in any outside inspiration, or if you take in anything from the outside, to make sure that it is confirming something that you already have within you. And to learn how to not take things so personal, and to learn how to approach the world in an unconditional way, to live with love and with generosity of spirit, not necessarily like material things, you know, which like that's cool. But these books, I believe, will help you do that. So I hope you find them helpful. I have 7 books on my list and I'm ready to get into it. So first, I'm going to split these up into 3 categories. The first is self-discovery, the second is inspiration, and the third is finances. And we're going to start with self-discovery. First is one that I think you might be familiar with. I've seen it a lot. I've had it for about 2 years. It is one that you can go back to and read over and over and over again. And I think it is great for people who are further along in a self-discovery journey, and also for anyone who is at the very beginning. And it is 100% 101 Essays That Will Change the Way You Think by Brianna Wiest. And it is very self-explanatory. She has taken the time to put together well-written essays on pursuing your passion, how to get to know yourself, how to confront your own biases, or to be aware of your own internal cognitive biases and how they may be impacting the way you see your life, the way you approach your life. It is a book on wisdom. And I think the beauty of the book, at least to me, is that it is written in very easy to understand ways. It feels very conversational, all the essays that she's written in this book. And sometimes they are written as one long essay, and sometimes they are written in points. And some of the pieces require reflection on your part, and some are more heavy hitting, where she's like telling you things and you're being read as you're reading the book. And I love that. I think it comes close to covering every aspect of life. And if you're seeking to understand yourself, why you act the way you do, why you think the way you do, there are even aspects in the book where it helps you embrace your negative thinking as a way to understanding the situations that we find ourselves in life. It is a book that I always highly, highly recommend, even for non-readers. There are audiobook versions of it. There are EPUB versions of it. It has been published in any way that you would want a book to be. I think it's the perfect how-to guide for anyone who's in their 20s, in their 30s, or in their 40s. I think if you want to get to know yourself, if you want to get to really start investigating how you interact with the people in your life or circumstances in your life, that is a perfect book to start. That's why I'm starting out with it. So yes, highly recommend. Highly, highly recommend. The second book is by the master herself, Miss Shonda Rhimes, and it is Year of Yes. I read this book a couple of years after I saw her TED Talk about it. So that's something you should also check out. The TED Talk is great. The subtitle of the book is How to Dance It Out, Stand in the Sun, and Be Your Own Person. In this book, she really breaks down what it means to give yourself the courage to be yourself. I think a lot of times when you're in your 20s, a lot of the lessons that you learn is going to be you unlearning a lot of the habits, a lot of the thought processes that you were imbibed with when you were growing up as a child, unlearning all of that and really letting yourself flourish into the person that you authentically were born to be, the person that you already are. And I think we spend a lot of our energy trying to be other people, trying to position ourselves in the most acceptable form possible because we're human and we want to survive and we want to belong, so we make ourselves into all these different versions of ourselves that maybe are not even the most true versions of ourselves. But this book is about saying yes to yourself, taking on the challenge of really being yourself and doing the work that comes with that. It is a wake-up call. I love this book so much. And if you know anything about Shonda Rhimes, if anybody can break things down in a way that it would make sense to you, where you're reading the book and you're reading the words and you're like, this is it. This is absolutely it. She talks about confronting the relationships with people in your life. She talks about your health. She talks about how even though it is the most worthwhile journey that you ever take, it is going to be grueling work. And all the yeses that you're going to have to say to yourself and to your calling will be the most meaningful, but the most difficult work that you're ever going to do. But it is the most rewarding. And I think this applies to whether it is the most basic things in your life or it is, to the most difficult moments in life. I highly recommend Year of Yes by Shonda Rhimes. Next category, inspiration, books that inspire you. And the first book I'm going to talk about is Bored and Brilliant by Manoush Zomordi. I came across this book in 2019, right before the pandemic kicked into full gear and we went into isolation, lockdown, the same thing. But when the world kind of started panicking and we were being told to go inside, one thing that I somehow started doing was listening to the TED Talk podcast. They have a podcast channel and there was one episode where they were talking about being bored and she was the person being interviewed, and that was how I found out about her book. The byline for the book is How Spacing Out Can Unlock Your Most Productive and Creative Self. So this book talks very specifically about not running away from yourself. I think that because of the world that we're living now, and I think in some way this has been true for the past 2 to 3 decades, but we have a tendency to keep ourselves distracted, or as we like to say, to keep ourselves entertained. We are addicted to entertainment, and And this book is solely responsible for why I, for the past 2 years, schedule doing nothing onto my to-do list. I try to make sure that I am making time for just being, to make sure that I can hear myself think. And I notice that when I find myself going days or weeks, sometimes even months without doing that, where I'm just like, I'm so busy, I'm just going. And I'm not saying like keeping busy with things that are obviously distractions. I'm saying like there are times when like even the good things in our lives, like our jobs, can be the things keeping us distracted, right? Especially if you live in the Western world. Being busy is something that you're applauded for. People make a big deal about the fact that they barely get any time to themselves. They're always busy, always going. But if you want to get to know yourself, if you want to be able to distinguish what your actual thought is versus what is all the noise out there, you're going to have to let yourself get bored. And when you find yourself getting bored, to not immediately want to fill that time with something, you need to take the time to disconnect from the world. There is a delicious chapter in this book on digital overload, and somewhere in it they mention like how over the years there's the possibility, based on her research, there's possibility that the increase or the rise in technology might also be reflected in the rise in the amount of people who have ADHD. So they kind of explore it as a chicken and egg situation. What came before? Do we all like mostly have ADHD, ADD because of our attention spans, which are getting shittier and shittier every day? But yes, the point of this book is getting to know yourself, getting to know your creative self, which if you've ever heard me talk, if you've ever heard me talk on social media, I think your creative self is your full self. I know there are some people who don't think of themselves as creative, but I think if you're a living being, then your creative self exists within you, even if it doesn't manifest in the artsy way that we're taught that it does. And you don't want to kill that part of yourself. So a very good way to nourish yourself is to let yourself get bored and brilliant. So highly recommended. And I can't talk about that book without talking about Big Magic. Big Magic is one that I finished reading just 2 months ago. And I now know that I will be going back to this book over and over and over again. It is by Elizabeth Gilbert, the author of City of Girls and Eat, Pray, Love. And she very generously writes about everything that she has learned on the mysterious nature of inspiration in this book. I love her so much. I could listen to her talk on creativity for hours on end. She has a podcast where she does exactly that, and I would check it out if you're interested in that. But she writes in a way that sometimes I can feel the joy and like the generosity of spirit and her wisdom and her insightfulness just like pour out of her, like in her words, the way she writes, and especially if you're listening to the audiobook and reading the book at the same time. She is a very gifted artist, and I am very grateful. I'm very grateful for her mind. And wherever you are on your journey, I think that this book will help you live your everyday life with a sense of purpose and wonder. It make you appreciate the mundane parts of your life too. So yes, highly recommend. Final book in this category of inspiration is The Courage to Write. If you follow me on TikTok or on Instagram, you know that I have talked about this book for years. I've talked about this book for years because I always say I didn't find this book found me, because I wasn't trying to be a writer. Like now I have writing aspirations. I dream of one day writing a book, but at the time when I picked up this book, I wasn't trying to be a writer. I was just, like more looking for a book on courage more than anything, but I don't know what it is. Something about this book called to me, and I'm glad I answered that call, because the author, Ralph Keyes, is in this book very specifically talking to writers, and he's talking about courage with how it relates to being an author, like the blocks that authors face in putting their thoughts out there. So I think while that is his audience, anybody that is seeking courage, wanting to read more about courage, wanting to feel less alone when it comes to like facing any moment in their life with courage, would benefit from this book. It's not just his voice. There are many parts where he's pulling from other authors. He's done proper, mostly anecdotal research where he's talking to people who are either already established artists and people who are taking like workshops on writing and haven't published anything. And the funny thing, every time I go back and I'm reading this book, the thing that I always find fascinating is across that range, the people who are at the beginning of their journey to courage, who maybe haven't done anything like courageous, and on the other end, people who have published books, like really published authors or screenplay writers and screenwriters, or people who have written all sorts of things. We all seem to be experiencing this very similar things when it comes to courage, right? putting your thoughts out there, putting yourself out there, like, and finding out what your authentic voice is, what you actually want to say in this world, and having the courage to put it out without thinking about what anyone else is going to think, like having the courage to take life as it is given to you, right? And so even though he's specifically talking about how writers transcend fear in this book, I think anyone could read it. I think you could read it. I've read it multiple times. It is a very well used book in my household, and I recommend it to anyone who is on that journey. Very quickly, before I move on to finances, the third category, I wanted to recommend this book. It's called Take What You Need by Abiola Babarinde. She's a creator online. I'll put her Instagram link up here. But they are very simple thoughts that she's put together that are basically a collection of encouragement and life lessons for anyone who is growing up, doesn't want to settle, wants to learn to stand for themselves, to be self-reflective. And when I first got the book, what I used to do was I would take one of the lessons or like words for the day and use them as reflective thoughts. And I found them to be really helpful. It's very funny because I remember recommending this to someone one time, and she said something that I found to be really funny because of how wrong it was. She was like, oh, like, it's very basic. It's very like, there's nothing here that nobody knows. Like, the book isn't that deep, which I found to be really funny because I find that when it comes to knowledge, when it comes to getting to know yourself, it is the simplest things that make the biggest difference. So what an unwise way of looking at things. But yes, it is a very simple book that could have really big impact depending on how you choose to use it and how it helps you investigate yourself, how it helps you get to know yourself. So yeah, take what you need. Okay, the last category, finances. This one, I had no idea. I'm a firstborn in my family and first generation immigrants, whatever you want to. I'm the first of the first to do many things in my family. So money management and the idea of wealth and how to navigate wealth and money as both a fiscal, physical, spiritual thing was alien to me. I had no idea growing up. No one really taught me the ropes. So 2 books that I would recommend to help you with that is, one, Why Didn't They Teach Me This in School? Which is self-explanatory from the title. It is about money management. It is very introductory. It breaks down everything that you should know about money, how to make money, how to spend money, how to keep money, how to save money, how to invest money, what debt means, what credit cards mean, how to use credit card, how to understand the credit system. Now, this is very specifically for people who live in the Western world or in America specifically, I think. It also has chapters on insurance and housing, and it really breaks down like all those very basic things, which I'm sure you can find online, but this book has everything put in. And I don't know if it's the kind of book that has editions and it's updated over the years, but as far as I know, there's just this one version of it that exists, and it has been so helpful. It's the one thing that I would recommend to my own younger sister and my currently teenage brother, because there are many things here that would have been really helpful when I was first growing up to be an adult. There are many things that, as the title said, they didn't teach us in school. And there are many lessons here that could really help you avoid getting yourself into financial problems because you didn't know how to manage money at the very beginning of your life. So yes, pick it up, read it, study it. It will be helpful to you, I promise. And the second book, last book that I will recommend is Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. If I'm being honest, I've never finished this book. I still haven't finished this book. I've only read 2 chapters on it, and the first one that I've read is Persistence, and I read The Subconscious Mind. Those are 2 chapters that I just skipped right to because at the time when I picked up this book, that was really what I wanted to learn. But even though I haven't fully read all the chapters, I haven't read every single thing. Also, I read the acknowledgement section because I'm a sucker for, I love acknowledgement sections. I don't know what it is, but sometimes just like, I wonder, how personal we're going to get and how sometimes the acknowledgement sections of some books just are so deep and nourishing, and it gives you an insight into what the author was thinking when they're writing the book and how multiple people in their lives contributed to it. And I think most of it for me is because I have a romantic idea of what it means for a collective to inspire something. So anytime I read an acknowledgement section, it makes my heart feel a little happy. I'm like, oh, like there's one author, of course, like that did the bulk of the work, but all these different people contributed to this work in some ways. See, yeah, like I said, romantic. It's a very romantic notion. But Think and Grow Rich, it's a very well written book. I think I picked it up because it was recommended by the YouTuber Ali Abdal, and he gives great book recommendations. And the chapters that I did read, I didn't regret reading it, so I would highly recommend it as well. And And yeah, I think that is it. I have wanted to make this video for a while, I think because it is something that people ask me in real life. Like, could you give me a book recommendation on this? Could you give me a book recommendation on this? Because I read a lot, and I'm also trying to do a version of this video, but specifically for fiction books, which is what I read the most about. So yeah, I really enjoyed doing this. I hope you found it helpful. If you have any recommendations, let me know in the comments. I could do this for like different categories of books. Well, not a lot, but different categories of books. And I know in my mind that I wanted this video to be like less than 20 minutes long. But when it comes to books, I yap. I can talk and talk and talk, but I am glad that we have finally come to the end. It is hot. I can turn on my fan now. And I hope you found this video helpful. Let me know in the comment section what else you want to see, and I will talk to you soon. Thanks for hanging out. Bye. Do 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 do.